time, and specifically exploring African heritage. And very important for me today is the diaspora tourism and economic opportunities. What does it present to us as Kenya and Africa in general? Please let me have my slides on. So we say Karibu Nyumbani for those of you who are not from Kenya or from Africa. Welcome to the beautiful continent of Africa. Africa is a very special continent, and you'll see it shortly in the slide that I'm about to present. Please, next slide. Good. This is the world map as we know it. In school, we've been given the position of Africa, and when you look at it, Africa looks almost smaller than North America or even Asia. But recently, of late, we've been told that, look here, Africa is far bigger than most of these other continents put together, and that is the reality. So we need to start giving our own narrative. We need to start telling them what we feel and where we should be. So next slide, please. So Africa's true size. Number one, Africa is 30 million square kilometers. Speak. I'm sure you must have come across this image where we can plug in China, we can plug in the US, we can plug in India, France, Germany, and all these guys together and drop UK somewhere in Madagascar. And you still have space in Africa. Africa is huge. And there are many countries. And when you look at Africa as a continent, for those of you who read history, you'll realize that during the scramble for Africa, the European in Berlin, what they simply did is to take a ruler and start dividing the continent. There are some countries with a very straight line, and even families find themselves on different sides. Take about Uganda and Kenya. The Awori family, some found themselves in Kenya, some found themselves in Uganda. And sitting again in Berlin, they were trading off and saying, you know what, I'll give you this piece of island in Africa. Why don't you give me this other part in Europe? So guys were trading, you know, and subdividing Africa. So today, we are a continent, and most of them actually sometimes even refer to Africa as a country. So ignorance about Africa's size as well as the number of countries has often led to what? African countries being consolidated into one small country. When you have a problem in one part of Africa, it is believed is the whole of Africa. As tourism players, when there was Ebola, for instance, somewhere in West Africa, Sierra Leone, we had to demonstrate to our source markets that you are actually closer to Sierra Leone than Kenya. So Europe was closer to Sierra Leone and to that Ebola factor than Kenya. So it's important that as Africans, we need to start telling our story. And this is part of it. So when we see KMKT where we're discussing culture, we're discussing the diaspora, that is key. Next slide, please. So a few facts about Africa is that 25% of the world's languages are spoken only in Africa. I met a gentleman from Ethiopia this morning, and he looks after Haile's hotels. The last time I checked on his hotels, Haile Gebrselassie, the man who gave us a lot of headache in winning gold against Paul Tergat. Now he owns 11 hotels. No, 9 hotels. No, 11 hotels. And when I remember about Haile could hardly speak any English. And as usual, we will laugh at anyone who doesn't speak English, which is a wrong approach. And I asked him, how many Spanish people or French people are able to speak fluent English? Why don't you laugh at them? So it's important that we consider our languages equally important, because at the end of the day, communication is key. So Africa, 25% of the world languages actually spoken here. It is thought and believed we have over 2,000 languages in use across our beautiful continent. Amazing, isn't it? And Africa is the only continent that extends from the northern hemisphere to the southern temperate zones. You can crisscross from Egypt all the way to Cape Town, and you're cutting across the hemispheres. It's only Africa where you get to do that. And then more than half of the world's mobile money accounts are in Africa. And of course, Kenya, we should be very proud. Unfortunately, we like beating ourselves too hard. The other time, just recently, we were around 54%. Today, we are standing at 73% of our folks are all connected on mobile telephony. But we don't like celebrating this. I remember on a flight from Joburg to Durban, a lady from Swaziland, when she knew that I was from Kenya, she said, please tell me about M-Pesa. M-Pesa, the way they pronounce it. And of course, yours truly, Optimist, took the opportunity to showcase what M-Pesa is all about. And that has really made, Kenya and Africa special. And then down here, Africa also has around 30% of the world's remaining mineral resources. And this includes what? 40%. Over 40% of gold reserves and 90% of platinum reserves. Whatever is happening in West Africa, the young presidents taking over puts a big smile on my face. They are far younger than me. I'm on 5th floor. When I see young guys, late 30s, early 40s taking charge, that to me is refreshing. And I hope that wind will spread, will blow across Africa. Next slide, please. Next. So, Africa as the cradle of humanity. These days they talk about mankind and humankind. And I see South Africa coming up strongly talking about humankind. But what we know is that when you talk about cradle of mankind, early humans left Africa is believed, this is a scientific version, let's leave the religion aspect for a while, and spread around the globe. And Kenya is considered the true what? Cradle of mankind. That's why we've adopted the tagline of Karibu Nyumbani. And there's no better way to do that from a tourism angle so that we grow our numbers. So welcome home, we say. Next slide, please. So according to the UN Educational Scientific, UNESCO, when they talk about culture, and I can see beautiful attires today here, it is described as complex whole which includes knowledge, beliefs, arts, morals, customs, and any other what? Capabilities and habits acquired by human as member of society. And Africa, we should never consider ourselves as inferior. Our culture is deep, and we need and we must protect it. And as a mother continent, that's what we can call ourselves, and first inhabited region, Africa is huge. When you look at the heritage, you look at the culture, and then God has been very kind to us. From the Atlas Mountains, you come to the savannas of East Africa, Sahara Desert, all the way to South Africa. You're told River Congo is able to power electricity, generate electricity for the entire Africa if it was harnessed properly. Look at the Livingstone Falls as well. The Zambezi, the great Zambezi River. So Africa is a huge continent that we have just scratched the surface when it comes to tourism. When you look at tourism, the whole world, we had around 14.5 billion travelers in 2014. Out of that, Africa's share was hardly 3.5%. Out of the 3.5%, 60% will be taken up by the Maghreb countries of Tunisia, Egypt, Morocco, Algeria. So what are we left as sub-Saharan Africa? Less than 25 million. So whenever I hear people talk about Zanzibar versus Kenya or Tanzania versus Kenya, etc., I always remind them, it's like two dwarfs competing who is taller. In the scheme of things, we are nowhere. Why can't we grow those numbers to 10%, to 15%, to 20%? If we can have a successful aviation industry like Ethiopian Airlines and Kenya Airways for many years as well, why can't we also grow our numbers? Next slide, please. So the treasure of Africa's unique identity encompasses what? Not only the people, but nature. When you look at Dubai and many other places, they are trying to create artificial islands. They're trying to create artificial beaches. They're trying to create many things artificial. In fact, they even now are creating a safari experience. Somebody the other day sent me and said, is this not going to dilute our safari? And I said, you know what? It's like it's comparing espresso coffee with instant coffee. Let them go and experience that big zoo, I call it that way. If they like it, they would like to experience now true safari in the true spirit of safari. That's what should happen. So the origin of the history of mankind, we have Turkana, we have Olduvai Gorge, you know, all the way now also to South Africa, all the way to the pyramids of Egypt. There's a lot of culture, a lot of history that we can tap into. Gede ruins in Watamu, yeah, Malindi Watamu. There are many places. But look at how many numbers are we sending to Turkana, for instance? Hardly any numbers. If Kenya today was South Africa, today Turkana will be another Cape Town. They will really exploit it to the fullest. And that's a gap that we need to close. Next slide, please. So Africa's World Heritage Sites, we have quite a number. And from these, the category sites, they have natural, they have cultural, and mixed. And quite a number are actually now endangered, and we need to protect them. We have around 12.5%, the ones that have been allowed into UNESCO. I'm very happy that Gede was recently added onto the World Heritage Sites. And that is something we need to develop across many other countries so that more and more of these sites can get into the protection, sites. Next slide, please. So when it comes to Kenya, it's globally recognized as archaeological, hotbed. This is where, and thanks to the leakies, and East Africa is still considered by many anthropologists to be the cradle of mankind. It's good. South Africa is starting to have their own narrative with humankind, and they have their own sites. We have no quarrel with that. The more, the merrier. But it's important that the whole of Africa identify your sites and talk about them. So Kenya is renowned for what? Sites depicting the life of early man. And Kenya has produced fossil evidence which tells almost the entire human evolutionary story that surrounds it. Next slide, please. So how do we enhance cultural tourism? Number one, we need to preserve. And we have a big challenge as we continue to urbanize. The biggest challenge that we are having is we are losing that cultural aspect. The big difference between us and guys, let's say from India, they all insist that they still want to continue speaking their mother tongue. But in Africa, let's even say Kenya, you try to avoid it, which is not the right thing, because years down the line, some of these languages will have disappeared. And we need to promote our unique cultural values. And I'm very happy that African Americans are trying to find their roots to come back to Africa to see where they came from. And that is helping to promote and to conserve some of these sites. So collaborations with the local communities that have decided to protect some of these cultures, it's crucial that they benefit from tourism and we help them to harness that particular culture. So cultural experts and heritage organizations must be supported. And I must commend our government and even previous governments, that there is a whole docket for heritage. And that ties in with tourism. And it's important we continue doing that, and I will encourage other African countries also to do the same, because if you don't do it, then you will lose that culture. Now that we are all looking at experiential tourism, people don't want to come and just stay in hotels. They want to know how you live, what you eat, how you carry your day-to-day business. That's what they want to feel. They want to feel the heart and the soul of the people. And if we don't have that authentic cultural experience, then it becomes difficult. But the fact now that they're asking for it, it means it is easier for us to actually promote, and then in the process, protect some of these cultural sites and cultural attributes that we have in our beautiful continent. Next slide, please. So Africans in the diaspora, we left for various reasons. The first time when we left Africa, we left for bad reasons. That was the slave trade. You are caught and you are shipped to some far land to work on some sugar plantations, God knows what. That's why we ended up in the Caribbean, West Indies, and all those places, and of course the US. And then the second one was after independence. You go for education, and in the process, we gave the US 44th president. The contribution of Africa to Europe and North America is not small, it's huge. So the power of Africans in the diaspora is 5% of the global population, which brings together close to 350 million inhabitants. When you look at the football team of France, they look more African than some of the African countries. That is the contribution of Africa when it comes to some of these countries. So the diaspora sends every year to the African continent $60 billion plus, which is what? Much more than we receive in international aid. Kenya today is the highest when you look at the forex remittance comes from Kenyans in the diaspora. North America leads with close to 25%, followed by UK, and other countries. It's big. And Africans in the diaspora have also contributed heavily when it comes to culture and sports. Culture, talk about music. We are big in music. The drum beats of Africa from any side of Africa, it's a, throbbing. It's a continent, it's a happy continent, despite all our challenges. Next slide, please. You jumped one, yeah. So looking at the social economic impact, I managed to get this for 2023. Look at Nigeria, Egypt, Ghana, and Kenya is coming at number 4 and number 5 in terms of remittance to the continent. This is how you account for that 60 billion plus. And they say what? East or West, home is best. All these Africans in the diaspora, they still want to come back home to invest and to live here. In fact, they tell you, US is my other home, but I would like to come back home, the real home. But are we also creating an environment where they're welcome, where the investment is safe? Those are the questions we need to answer, and that's some of the challenges that we face. Next slide, please. So preservation of cultural heritage. Africa is underrepresented on the World Heritage site, which earlier on I shared, which is only 12%. But there is a particular day that we hardly even celebrate. It's very quiet, which is the World Heritage Day, on the 5th of May. Now that today at MKT we are talking about culture and we are talking about Africans in the diaspora, it's important that day becomes a big day in the whole of Africa. Because cultural tourism is the next big thing after what God has given us in terms of what? Beach and in terms of safari. And people keep telling me, guys are tired of safari, they are tired of beach. I always tell them, they're not tired of it. That will still remain our core. It's God-given. Now, if we add culture, you can imagine, you can come and spend 3 weeks in Africa, and you can, crisscross different, countries and experience different setups, and that's what we should all be aiming for. So every 5th May, African cultural and natural heritage needs to be celebrated. Kenya, we haven't done it, we have not done too well about it. The same thing with many other African countries. So this is something that KTB and all tourism boards really, really needs to embrace. Next slide, please. So discovering the treasures. Africa's rich history and culture is so diverse. The challenge we face is how do we bring these all together? We've done it in a small way at Bomas for Kenya, but how can we do it across the entire Africa? Asante in Ghana, you talk about Zimbabwe, you talk about all these countries. They all have their very heavy and strong culture that needs to be exploited. So the culture of each ethnic group holds together the authentic social fabric of traditional practices and rites. I hear people say that Africans are corrupt. But do you know in African culture we are not corrupt? Because we never take what is not ours. So we need to find out at what point did we leave the rail so that we can come back. That is something we need to address. So the first step to harness the potential of Africa's culture is to create global economic opportunities, and we must raise awareness of Africa's massive contribution to modern life and global culture. The fact that we have this session is one step, and it will be seen globally thanks to technology. And this is something every African government should embrace, so that we position culture in the heart of tourism and the heart of everything that we do. Next, please. So music and fashion are good examples of the global impact African. This I borrowed from African Union Agenda 2063. There's a lot of stuff being done by African Union if you only take time to understand and to read through what they do. So many modern icons in the music industry have incorporated African instrumentation ideas into their music. How much have we exploited that bit? The jury is still out there. So many modern instruments have also evolved from ancient African forms, and many other types of music have also adopted similar techniques. Until the other day, West African music could not be played anywhere globally. Today, they're everywhere, including East African music. It's being played globally. And thanks again to technology. One beat goes viral, and before you realize it, it's gone global. Next slide, please. I got these two quotes from two Africa's music icons, Miriam Makeba. She said, "I kept my culture, I kept the music of my roots through my music. I became this voice and image of Africa and the people." Miriam Makeba. And of course, Angelique Kidjo from a tiny country in West Africa. If you love music, she said, you have to be the one that opens doors. You have to be the one that builds bridges on which everybody can be free to walk on. I know that's my mission. Because also culture and music supports peace. When good music is played, irrespective of your culture, where you come from, you find yourself dancing to it. You remember 2010 World Cup? This is the time for Africa. And today if it is played, it reminds you good memories. That's the power of music. How much have we used it? Next slide, please. So when we do all this, it has to revolve around sustainability. I will not go deep into this. It's very important. Anything that we do, it is available today for our use, and we make sure that it is available also tomorrow. And we also try as much as possible to retain the authentic aspect of whatever that we do. The last thing we want is for anyone to dilute the beautiful culture that we have on our continent. So culture is both a driver, an enabler, of sustainable development. So sustainable cultural tourism is now the new perspective. Yesterday, you went through in depth about sustainability, so I won't dwell into it. And it's the easiest way to help our people to benefit from tourism. Tourism should not just end in hotel rooms, 5-star hotels, or top-end tour companies. It should percolate all the way down to mashinani, as we call it, in Kenya and East Africa. Next slide, please. So promoting Africa's heritage and awareness. As I said, 5th May is now proclaimed to be the African World Heritage Day. We must celebrate it. And I'm happy to see our national carrier, Kenya Airways, proudly with the headband for the ladies, which clearly shows that this is Africa. And when you come on board, you feel you're in an African airline. There are many people who fly KQ because they consider it to be the true face of Africa. A lot of respect to Ethiopian and many others, yeah? But it is important that we position ourselves as truly an African, destination, and that's what we are. Next, please. I captured on this earlier on. Let's move on. Next, please. So what are the future trends and innovation? It is said Africa is the fastest growing continent in terms of population, which comes with its own challenges. We have a lot of young people. They are looking for employment. They are all looking for ways to earn a living. We saw what Gen Zs are doing around, not only in Kenya, around Africa. We need to be ready for them because they are our children. And we need to create enabling environment for them to be able to look after themselves. So in Africa, Africa will account for nearly half of global population over the next 2 decades. At the same time, the share of working age individuals relative to non-working population is also increasing. So African governments, I'm happy, our Kenyan government, we have the youth ministry, but we need to allocate more funds so that all these, demographics are looked after, because if we don't, then it's also not strategically very safe to ignore them. Next, please. Next slide. Yeah, so technology, we play a very important role. And we are talking about virtual reality, augmented reality. A lot of these things, by the way, you will see them online. And then you say, you know what? I want to visit Africa. Before you choose to visit a destination, you've already seen it. And you say, it is going to be part of my bucket list. If you're not present in the digital space, then people will not know about you. Sustainability, again, I've talked about it. I won't dwell on that. Yeah, next slide as we come close to the end of... So economic opportunities, I've been talking a lot about tourism. In 2021, estimated power of the black population, these are the guys who left during the slave trade. They are, the next generation, In the US alone, spending power, $1.7 trillion US dollars. That's big money. And many of them are choosing to come and visit Africa. And Senegal is one of the destinations, and also Ghana. Is the rest of Africa positioning itself? Some have even gone to the extent to do tests on their DNA to find out, by the way, where do I come from the continent of Africa? I think Oprah believes she came from South Africa. And many others have said they come from Nigeria, Ghana. For Kenya, you really don't have to do any DNA. Obama comes from Kenya. So some of the most noticeable and impactful innovations, as I said, we have M-Pesa in Kenya, Wave in Senegal. Then we have World Remit, which was started by a young man formerly from Somalia, now in Europe. World Remit, they are all, when you look at some of these creations, the people who create them are actually not Africans. But these particular ones are actually Africans in the diaspora. And there are many more who are willing to come back and make a difference. Because one of the challenges we face in terms of remittance is the cost of sending money to Africa, which tends to be very expensive when you look at the, the bank to bank tends to be very expensive. So now if you're able to make it cheaper, then Africa should be able to benefit. So tourism and travel to Africa is one huge untapped market. Remember, it's only 3.5% that we're benefiting from. And even that 3.5, half of it is inter-Africa cross-border. Ugandans to Kenya, Kenyans to Uganda and Tanzania and vice versa. Real tourism is such a small number. Yeah? And I'm happy when I see leaders from Kenya Airways here, and of course all our other airlines in Africa. We need to make it easy for our people to crisscross, the entire continent. Next slide. So I'll have 2 more slides and then I'm done. The challenges we face in Africa. Well, this is not really diaspora from North America, Europe, and what have you. There is what we call openness of the African continent. How easy is it for people to move from one country to the other? Long transit will allow you to come and experience the beautiful city of Nairobi. But please put your hands together for Benin, Seychelles, Gambia, and Rwanda. Yes, those 3. You need no visa. You just walk in as long as you're an African traveler. We introduced ETA, which is a good thing, yes, but we still have some way to go. The dream is Africans, we should be able to fly into any country without any questions being asked. Why? Because our road network is still very poor. One of the ways to travel is by air. But we are still not making it easy for ourselves. And when you look down, there are places like Algeria, Egypt. For instance, Central African Republic will ask you to apply for visa, and you have to pay $250. So I met the minister for tourism one time, and I said, how on earth will you grow your tourism if you're asking for $250 only for visa? Yeah? Travel between Cameroon and Kenya. Cameroonians have to apply, and you have to wait, I think, 2-3 weeks. I don't know what you're trying to verify. So we have huge challenges. So we need to be nice to each other. And none other than Aliko Dangote said that, well, an average person from Europe can walk into Africa anytime. Him, as a leading investor, he has to apply for visa, I think 34 countries in Africa. Otherwise, he will not be allowed in. That's the tragedy of Africa. And African Union has to address that. Next slide, please. So challenges which can be turned into opportunities. We just don't talk about the challenges and we leave it at that. I have an aircraft there. Number 1 is lack of information to invest in Africa. That's the big challenge we have. So KTB, alongside the investment arm in their country, and that applies to all other African countries, you need to position yourself. How much do people know when they want to invest? Tanzanians in the diaspora who want to come back to Tanzania, how much do they know about their country if they want to invest? So that is crucial, because if information is not available, then it becomes very difficult for them to know. Then number 2, low trust levels. Africans from the diaspora keep losing money when they try to invest in Africa. It has happened in Kenya, it has happened in South Africa, it has happened in Nigeria. You work so hard. The investment you thought existed in Kenya was nothing but just hot air. You come back, you find there was nothing. And just not a relative investing on your behalf, even leading blue chip companies going under. So that's a key thing we need to address as African countries if we want to get our brothers and sisters to come back. Closed borders, I demonstrated that, and I said Seychelles, small country, population of Seychelles is hardly 100,000 people. And they're not worried about you coming to stay over and, because the main thing African countries are saying, illegal immigrants. Then I ask, illegal immigrants, you're not a welfare state. So how will you earn a living? So why are you worried? Seychelles are telling you, come over, don't overstay, go back. And they've never had a problem with that. Sometimes fear is a mindset. We feel that, hey, when they come over, they will never leave and they'll be involved in crime. And that is not actually the case. Lack of affordable availability of air connectivity is key. That's a big challenge we face. Again, put your hands together for Ethiopian, Kenya Airways, Rwanda Air, who have really tried the level. And I'm happy to see Uganda Airways coming up and Tanzania Airways as well. So this is key. It's important we grow our aviation industry. And most importantly, in the process, we must take advantage of SATAM, yeah, the single Africa air market, which allows African airlines to fly to any destination as they wish. But you can only do that if you have the equipment. You can only do that if you have the muscle to do it. Ethiopian is doing it. Kenya Airways now. You can fly from Nairobi via Livingstone and you go to Cape Town. Am I right? Then you fly Nairobi, you do Dakar, you connect with Accra and then connect Dakar. No other airline is allowed to do that from outside, which means African countries have a clear agenda on how to grow the aviation industry. Yes, we come to the end. Next slide, please. Thank you. I was given 20 minutes and just on time. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Alex.
Let's give him a round of applause. Sorry. I invite you to take a seat. You just want, no, you can stay with it. Thought-provoking, wasn't it? Now, I welcome you to ask a few questions. I'm sure there are a few questions, clarifications that you may want to seek. So this is the time. So we'll take about 4. So question, there's one here. Another question somewhere? Okay, let's start with this as you think through.
Thank you so very kindly for that good presentation. It gives us a lot of hope. My name is Mutuku Amoindi, founder and director of Akamba Cultural Center and Museum. It is in Makueni County. One key question and one challenge we have is that our people do not separate culture and religion. And in that, when I was beginning this cultural center, there were serious issues from the religious community that they even wanted to come and burn down the center because I was taking people to the dark ages. And so we need a robust system for our people. And I'm glad that you talked about language, because when you think in your native language, you are able to preserve your culture better. So that's a challenge that we have, that everything culture is and religion. Thank you.
Another question?
Thank you. My name's Dr. Rotich Laban. Mine is not really a question, but maybe a comment that rides on the question that has just been asked. We have a rich culture, which I agree. Myself, being a student, now a lecturer, all my academic life, I've had very limited time to go back to my community, interact with my locals, know my language, understand my culture. So I'm just wondering, what are we going to do so that our young people, our Gen Z, know their culture, so that that transforms to the rich culture that we're talking about is supposed to help us, of course, increase tourism numbers. Thank you.
We have a question here as well.
Thank you so much. My name is Marie-Ange Lundu. I'm from Congo. I know a lot of you are looking like so surprised. Yes. I'm from Congo, and unfortunately, I just find it in the middle, which is a very interesting subject. I have a question which is really bothering me, and I would love if during this seminar or even after, we're going to have a chance to chat about that. I see a lot of projects that Africans are doing, including African Union, because I'm also working with them. Oh, sorry, I didn't say. I'm a DMC. I'm an owner of a DMC in Congo. It's called Stock and Africa. And I see a lot of projects, a lot of plans, anything that people are doing, they are doing it excluding Congo. I'm saying it as a citizen, and not as a tourism promoter. So I see everything that people are doing is like excluding Congo, as if Congo never exists in the map. Meanwhile, Congo has provided a lot of resources in Africa and in the world. So I would like to know, as we're talking about unifying visa, unifying growth, like growing together, unifying economic and working together as one Africa, where is going to be the place of Congo as a big nation, in Africa, as the best provider of all your Android phones and all like batteries in the world? This is really a question that's bothering me. I ask this question almost everywhere. I want to know, when you do your plan, when you talk about Africa, where is the place of Congo? Thank you so much.
Let's just take one more, and then we'll answer those ones, and then we'll go to the next set.
Hi, everyone. My name is Pendo, and I am a journalist. My question is, I recently had something called medical tourism. So I am asking, and I'm happy that Mr. Mutuku from the Kamba Cultural Place has said something about it. My question is similar, but on the health sector, basing on the hubs that we have in Africa. How are we telling the world that we have the best natural health system? I am happy that the National Museum of Kenya have a program where we go there and learn, but I need to have it at a larger scale, because it really breaks my heart when I have to learn about hubs in Africa by the books that have been written by a white man somewhere. It really doesn't sit well with me. So I need to have some little explanation on that and how we can promote our hubs out there to the world, because they do really work.
Let's take those first, and then we'll come to the other sets. Take those first.
Okay. I think the asked all the question that's meant for the panel, but I'll answer two. I'll start with the one of culture, that clashing with faith is a dicey one. When you talk about evolution and you talk about Christianity or Islam, we have totally a different belief altogether. So it's true, at that point there could be issues, but we still cannot run away from our culture. You come to the coast, we have the Digo community, were staunch Muslims, all right? Were staunch Muslims, but they still have the tradition without, again, conflicting, with their faith. So you can still strike a balance. The same thing applies also to Christianity. But unless you live in an environment where you've got serious extremists, whether they're Christians or Muslims, then that you will have an issue. And that's the reason why we have culture, even an entire ministry, under what? Under culture. The other one was the last question, because the other one was more of a comment, was about Africans and the books that we read that are written by others, right? And we have our own African authors. One thing I'd like to tell you is that as Africans, we're also very poor readers. We don't like reading. And someone said, if you want to hide something from an African, hide it in a book. And have you also noticed that when there are riots in town and people are looting, bookshops are never looted? Yeah. We have very many good African authors, where you can learn a lot from them. Whether it is Southern Africa, whether it is East Africa, very many. So lay your hands on a good book and also teach our kids, to read this. We may consider, recently someone said that, in fact, there's no point of studying history. You remember, that is waste of time. It is not waste of time. I'm a history student, and it's important that we help our kids to know where we came from. History is very important, to learn from the past so that you can plan for the future. It doesn't mean for you to be sophisticated, you have to drop your culture. That is not the case. For me, I have a lot of respect for the Indians. They still ensure that they follow their tradition totally when it comes to events. But when it comes to Africans, we tend to think that it is cool to be very Western. That should not be the case. We still should be proud of who we are, and that is what makes, Africa unique. The rest of the question, I think I'd like also to leave to the panel to be able to help me study that.
Just two more questions, and then we close.
Well, mine is much more. My name is Mudamba from DocuBox, the East African DocuBox,
okay,
the East African Documentary Film Fund. So mine is much more of a contribution to say that much of the things that we grapple with are to do with how information travels and how we can be able to share information from country to country, region to region, etc. And I come from a theater background. I'm now in film, and I am offering to say film should be one of the most important mediums to use when it comes to information sharing. Why I say so is because we cannot be able to share our cultural information and preserve our cultural information unless we have a medium where we can actually be able to capture that, store it, and share it. We are here to be able to give a solution to part of the touristic circuit to make sure that part of their information that they want to be shared with the world goes out to the world. But one of the most important things to do is really to try and find a way of making sure that our own people are able to, first of all, enjoy the sites and the spaces that we are in. One, most of our stories were told by outsiders from the outside view. Two, most of our sites are actually visited much more by outsiders than us. If we start enjoying our sites, if we go to the hidden gems that you talk about, the outsider will envy that and they will come down to it. I hope that's enough for our contribution for now. Thank you so much.
And the last question.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Aloino from Machakos University.
Yeah, please boom into the mic.
My name is Aloino from Machakos University.
Yeah.
Now, my question is, we say we need to support our youths to know the culture, and we need to teach our youth on culture. But you come to our universities, and you find that for me to stand out in the job market, I must learn French or German. And it is a must. It is compulsory. Already I know 3 languages. I can speak fluently in Luo, Swahili, and English. But I can't present that on my CV. I have to say I can speak French or German. Now, is there a way which the industry will make me feel safe, that even if I don't speak French, I can learn in that industry safely?
I think Mudama, yours was more of a comment. I appreciate that, and I agree with you. Tourism is a great, excellent vehicle to promote, our culture, across the continent and also globally. When it comes to the young man, you're very right. Even on the CVs, when we say the languages that you speak, we are shy of to say, I speak the Luo, or I speak Luya, or I speak Somali. We're always saying, I speak fluent, or German, French. We don't want to count our mother tongues. But on the other hand, when you meet a Westerner, they actually mesmerize that you can speak 10 languages, not necessarily the international languages. And this is something we don't appreciate and we are not proud of. You should, moving forward, list all the languages you speak. Swahili, you say Kikuyu, you say Luo, list, there's nothing wrong with that. Because learning those languages by itself is not easy. And the only way we are going to preserve those languages is only if we are proud of them. There's a gentleman who is crisscrossing Africa. He started 2 years ago, a French guy called Kinu Yves. How many of you follow his YouTube channel? I can see very few hands up. Very few. So please take that name, Kinu Yves. He's on a tricycle. He's not handicapped or anything. He started from France. He crossed into Egypt. As we speak now, he went through entire Kenya and he spent good time in Kenya. And he's narrating to people the cultures that he Recently he was in Zambia, and he said Zambia have got 73 languages. Unbelievable. I did not know that. All right? He crisscrossed the whole of Tanzania on tricycle, meeting locals. Unbelievable. When you read through the comments, people are saying, wait a minute, this guy has crisscrossed Africa on a tricycle, and nobody attacked him. He was in Kenya because his bicycle had a problem. And he went to Mathare, he went to, Tomboya Street, all the way, he was in Kenya for a whole 1 month, and nothing happened to him. And guys are saying, maybe that safety security thing is a mindset in us. Because that gentleman, as we speak, last he was at the falls in Zambia, then he has flown back to France to come back to continue with his tour into South Africa. So some of these guys actually tell our story better than we do. We should take pride in our languages and everything that we do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. Let's give him a round of applause. It has been a very exciting session and interaction. So thank you very much, Mohammed. Welcome you to take a seat, and then we'll invite you later. Okay. Now, I invite Dr. Ruth to come in front, and then invite the next set of speakers who will now take the stage. So Dr. Ruth, karibu.
Thank you, Alex. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. We've had a wonderful presentation, isn't it? Let's applaud Hersi again. And I know we need to stretch just a little bit. I kindly request we stand up. We stretch a bit. Don't hit your neighbor as you stretch, kindly. Hey, look at your neighbor. Tell them you're looking good. Better than yesterday. You may have your seats. You are amazing people. And it's indeed a wonderful morning. So we are getting into the next session where we'll be discussing about future trends and innovations. I would wish to call the panelists up front. The moderator is Ms. Gladys Kang'ethe, who is the Marketing and Corporate Communications Manager, Bomas of Kenya. Welcome. Kindly let's have the mics. Okay, thank you, Alex. We have Julius Thairo, who is the Chief Commercial and Customer Officer, Kenya Airways. Yes, we want to see the world with Kenya Airways. And with Julius here, I believe is going to enable us to see the world better. The third panelist is Dr. Kahithe Kiiru, who is an anthropologist, production manager and head choreographer, Bomas of Kenya. Karibu. Mr. Emmanuel Ndiema was to join the session. I don't know whether he's around, but in the event that his meeting has not ended, he will join us much later. Then we have Mr. Simon Halonda, head of Diaspora KCB. Karibu sana. So ladies and gentlemen, I wish to hand over this session to the moderator. We start the discussion on future trends and innovations. Gladys, over to you.
Thank you, Daktari. Good morning, everyone. Karibuni sana to this discussion. It's an exciting discussion about how we are going to tap into tourism, our culture, so that we are able to bring about economic impact into our countries. And so without much ado, I'd like just to have the panelists just say something about themselves, to introduce themselves a little bit more. Karibuni. Okay, I can start with you, Julius.
All right. Checking to see whether it's still morning. Good morning, everyone. Glad to be here. You're all looking good. I think Gladys, I'll get myself a Kenyan attire. You're looking very well.
Thank you.
I'm Chief Commercial and Customer Officer with Kenya Airways. Excited to be here to really dive deep into discussions around tourism, but also culture and heritage, sustainability, and economic empowerment for the continent. Because that is what Kenya Airways we are all about. And we all know tourism is a big economic driver of prosperity, and we need to do a lot more in Kenya and in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm Kahide. By training, I'm an anthropologist who specializes in the performing arts, notably Kenyan traditional music and dances. I am currently the production manager and head choreographer at Bomas of Kenya, where I essentially focus on theater production, audiovisual production, cultural research, documentation, digitization, and very many different mandate-related activities. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Kahide.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Simon Halonda. I'm the head of Diaspora Banking at KCB Bank. My role is to serve Kenyans who have moved to work, stay in the diaspora, and KCB being a big regional bank, we have a big task to ensure that these Kenyans have convenience and they are able to exploit opportunities that are presented back home. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to be in this engagement.
Thank you. So to start us off, we are talking about cultural heritage and tourism. So I'd like to invite Dr. Kahide to speak to us about what really is cultural heritage and how now do we link it to tourism, just as an introduction for everyone to understand.
Thank you, Gladys. Okay, so I believe when we talk about culture and cultural heritage, we have to be conscious also of the regional and local differences in some of the definition of the words and terminology we use. So in Kenya, when we speak of culture, we often make reference to tradition. Yeah. So those things we consider being part of our past, the ones that we inherited, they were passed down from generation to generation. Whether you're talking about the beading techniques in Rift Valley, whether you're talking about, traditional foods from the coast, whether you're talking about music of the Kamba people. So we look at cultural heritage from two different aspects. There is the one that is tangible. So these are, tangible items, whether it's a historic monument like Fort Jesus, whether it's now that sculpture, that came from Ukambani. But then we also talk about the intangible heritage. So intangible heritage is our traditional knowledge, our forms of expression, whether we're expressing ourselves through music, whether we're expressing ourselves through movement like dance, whether it's our myths, legends, and stories, the things, whether it's our knowledge in terms of how we make kyondos, for example, our weaving techniques. So the different aspects and different elements of cultural heritage. And I believe that across the world, it has become quite evident for a long time now. I'm not talking even about the last few years, but maybe the last 2 decades, that the nature of tourism has changed. The motivations people have to travel have changed. People no longer travel only to see destinations in terms of, the environment or, the beaches and the safaris and so on and so forth, and the animals. People travel to experience different cultures, to encounter other people who have a different background, a different story. So this is something that we really need to leverage on more and more in the future. The idea of experiential tourism is not something new. KTB has been running with that idea for a while now, magical experiences, signature experiences, and so on and so forth. So I think now we need to find a way of really infusing this experiential tourism with cultural elements. And we don't need to necessarily look at them as two separate entities, like this is this and this is that, you know. A lot of it cuts across, you see. If you're talking about our safaris, which will always remain, you know, a big attraction in Eastern Africa, why can't we talk also about the traditional knowledge that the communities who live in areas with wildlife, you know, have in terms of dealing with animals, you know, resolving wildlife-human conflict, and you know, preserving the environment, you know, encouraging sustainability of that entire ecosystem. That's a form of traditional knowledge. That's therefore a form of their culture. So we can find ways of connecting different areas and really infuse everything we do in terms of tourism with culture.
Thank you very much, Kahide. Maybe just to follow through that, when you think about culture, you are looking at different peoples and different communities. So, Julius, I'd like you to tell us, in terms of culture, how do you connect the people? You know, because you're the one who's supposed to connect us in terms of, they were talking about African countries. If I want to go, for example, to Ghana, you know, like what role are you playing to make sure that you are connecting the cultures here?
All right, thank you. First of all, that aligns very well with our mission as Kenya Airways. Actually, our mission is to propel Africa's prosperity by connecting people, cultures, and markets. And that's why we exist as a company. And Africa is a continent that has diverse cultural attraction and heritage. And I think, and I completely agree with my panelists here, there are many things that we need to do. The one first thing that we need to do, and Hersey touched on it, is we need to tell our story ourselves, you know, from our own eyes. So that's one. And then two, I think he talked about UNESCO heritage sites. If you look today, Africa has about, I think, 10 to 12% of UNESCO heritage sites. This is disproportionate if you think of the size of Africa and even the population. So from a government or Africa Union point of view, we also need to lobby to drive also more listing of heritage sites. I think in Kenya currently there are 6 or 7 on wait list. There's one that has been listed because that will do two things. One, it will attract more interest, so more tourists to those sites. And then two, it ensures that there is preservation, which is also very important. Of course, for us as an airline, we offer connectivity. And Africa, and again, Hersey shared some of the stats. Africa is such a huge continent that there is no way to connect its people by road or by rail. Economically, that is not viable, and we'll have to spend a lot of money, and it will take a lot of time to connect Africa through those other means. So the only means that we have when it comes to connecting Africa is by air connectivity. We currently, as Kenya Airways, do fly to 36 destinations in Africa. In fact, our focus, even from the mission, is really connecting Africa, because Africa still has a big gap when it comes to connectivity. So I fully support, even where we sit as a company, we really need to do a lot more and bring in a lot more partners to drive this openness of Africa. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. So I can see that, as we can see, that cultural tourism and our heritage is actually going to help in terms of how we are looking at our economy and growing our economy. So I'd like to bring in Mr. Simon right now, because we are looking at cultural heritage, and we are looking at you as an institution leveraging on cultural tourism to make sure that you are supporting, whether it's anybody who is out there who wants to invest here, and maybe you can just give us a little bit more on how you are supporting the economic impact of cultural tourism.
Yeah, thank you very much. bankers, when we are in a place, you are likely to be led to look at the numbers. And just going back to the presentation that was before us, when you look at countries, I think you've noticed countries like Ghana, we have Nigeria, they're attracting in a lot of remittances. We have seen Nigeria and Ghana doing 19 billion US dollars. If you are keen, you will notice Kenya we actually doing 4 billion US dollars. Then you wonder why the big disparity. And that makes us to start thinking, what can we do as a nation? What can we do as a region to ensure that we are able to bring in more flow of investment into this region? 4 billion US dollars is good enough, but I think we can do more here. So most of these countries, when you look at them, they have really gone deep into heritage tourism. There's a lot which is being done by Ghana and Nigeria just to tap into, we have the diaspora who left many years before independence, and they have identified with them. And we are seeing most of the people having interest to come and invest back in Africa. Diasporans mainly have been enabled, and we are lucky as Kenya, because I think Kenya now, after independence, we are looking at probably the third generation of diasporans. We are looking at the second generation who have different aspirations. They want to connect back home. How have we enabled the third generation Kenyans to connect back home here? So as an institution, what we are doing in a big way is to enable the Kenyan diasporans to connect back home here. A number of things that we are doing. The other day we were in London, and we met during a symposium. We met young Kenyans, third generation, who are asking, how can you enable us to participate in the development of Kenya? How can you enable us to purchase government bonds and infrastructure bonds, so that we are part and parcel of the development that is happening in that country? All right. So for us to enable heritage tourism, diaspora investment, economic opportunities to be exploited, we have to be innovative. And already we have started. For the young people, the Gen Zs, now we call them that name, we have a product. We have developed a bond investment product. This will endear these young people to remit money and invest back home here. We are working with partners. Kenya Airways is here, and how do we make it easy for Kenyans, third generation, second generation Kenyans, first generation Kenyans who want to travel from Canada to come back home and engage with the communities back here? We have partnered with Kenya Airways and other partners, I can see MasterCard, to ensure that the travel of these people is very easy through cards, MasterCard and others. When they travel back here, they have convenience. They can enjoy airport lounges across the world when they have that card that we have partnered with these other people. We are meeting a lot of young Kenyans whose parents left here many years back, probably to go to developed countries as students, Russia, America. They want to invest back in the communities where their fathers and mothers grew up. How do we attract these people to bring their wealth back here, use their connections to socially invest? Through the KCB Foundation, we have now a program where we are engaging the diasporans and just allowing them, if you want to invest back home in form of building classrooms, participating in community events, through the KCB Foundation, we are able now to reach out to these people. So we are doing a lot in terms of products. We have met, last week we were in Kitui County, opening a hotel that has been opened by a Kenyan diaspora. He came here to visit home, saw the need of putting up a wonderful hotel, and had a discussion with us. We were able to finance him through the mortgage division to construct a wonderful hotel in Kitui. And using his connections, he's able now to talk to other people as an ambassador of KCB Kenyan culture, just to talk to people to come and visit Kitui. We were able to enable that through our product in mortgage, help him to put up a wonderful hotel. So we need to assure our Kenyan diaspora of the opportunities here, and just assure them that we will be there to support, and especially as financial institutions, KCB being a big regional bank, just to assure them that we'll be able to support them in terms of financial products through corporate banking. I think that is where most of them look for opportunities. They want financing. For government, we have seen infrastructure is very important from the earlier presentation. How do we come in as a bank to look for funds and lend to government to put up good roads, supply electricity to all these places? Because most of these people, when they are coming here, they are coming from highly developed countries, and they want convenience. They want to be sure that when they come here, they will not be inconvenienced, for example, to charge their phone. So as a bank, we play a bigger role in ensuring that we assure them of financing, we assure them of hand-holding them. And again, for the region, I had a question from Congo. We have also spread into the region, and we are just there to support Kenyans to ensure that they get the best service and convenience when they are traveling back here, through partnerships like what we have done with Kenya Airways. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much. I can see that you are doing a lot in terms of supporting the people in diaspora who would like to come back home and invest. Maybe I just go to Julius. You were mentioned as one of the partners. So maybe I'd just like you to tell us a little bit more about how, because if you're talking about cultural tourism and heritage, then you have to look at how we are going to do partnerships, both locally and internationally, you know. And I think you sit in a very good place, because for you are serving both Kenya and you are serving others who want to come to Kenya. And also, when we are looking at how we are doing our tourism, remember it has to be sustainable, and that is a critical component of anything that you are going to do, whether it's in terms of investment or in terms of programs. So maybe you could share a little bit more about that.
All right. Partnership collaboration is a cornerstone of success, especially when we are talking about tourism. I was happy to see someone from Congo here, because when you think of unique experiences that we need to offer, especially as African continent, and it was touched on that today's travelers are looking for experiential travel. And I think this was, of course, accelerated by COVID. It was very clear after COVID, everybody today doesn't care too much about, let's say, just affluent travel, showing material things. You want to travel and connect with something that is meaningful. And here is where culture is quite strong. So my point here is, first, from a partnership point of view, we need to collaborate more with other African countries to create these seamless travel opportunities for people traveling either from Africa or coming from outside, for them to to have diverse and broad experience, because this just makes us more attractive. So it's not just about marketing Kenya and our attraction, but it's also when we bring somebody, let's say from New York here, they're experiencing something very unique about Africa, something that they cannot get anywhere else, because that gives us a competitive edge. My other point is also, of course, partnering with various governments and bodies like African Union. I think if we are to drive tourism and open up Africa, it is important also to open up our borders. Kenya has taken the first step with introducing ETA. I was very excited when His Excellency announced that we will have a transit product. We do have quite a number of our travelers, because 48% or almost 50% of our travelers are connecting within Africa. That's a big number. We carry about 5 million people. So imagine 2.5 million people who they have an opportunity to come in and experience the country. So also the partnership with government, discussing opportunities together, but making sure that we create policies that actually allow Kenya and Africa to be more open for travel. The other aspect of partnership and collaboration and linking it with sustainability is, of course, collaborating with the local communities. There's a lot that is being done. I think we had a gentleman here who talked about he set up a cultural center in Cumberland, in Ukambani. So, I mean, I haven't been there. I would like to also go there and see. But it's really collaborating with a lot of these people in the local communities doing amazing things. And us as Kenya Airways using our platform to tell those stories, whether it's through our in-flight entertainment system. When you have those 5 million people when they're traveling, it's captive audience. You want to show them what Africa is about, and we need to tell that from our own perspective. So the collaboration with local communities is important. We do a lot of that. And for us, sustainability is not just about the environmental aspect. It's also about the social aspect, which you can link it with heritage. For example, I think Hersey mentioned the beads that are worn by our cabin crew. In fact, that has two elements. There's the heritage element, because these beads are made by women from an organization called Wamama Wetu in Kibera, but they're made from recycled paper from our in-flight magazine. So we could throw those in-flight magazines away. Of course, a lot of paper, a lot of trees get cut to print that, but we recycle. So there's a sustainability aspect of it, but there's also the aspect of partnering with the local community. So providing economic means for these ladies who are making the beads. And then finally, the beads being worn by our beautiful cabin crew who showcase then our heritage. So that for us is very important. And the last part of it is, of course, the collaboration and partnership we do with either other organization in Kenya. I think KCB is a good example. We are currently working on a broad diaspora product, because we need to give reason to our diaspora community to come back here. Part of that reason could be, of course, to experience our culture and our heritage, but also it could be for economic empowerment through investment. So it's coming together, whether it's banking sector, like KCB has done, it is us, and we're doing this under the umbrella of State Department of Diaspora Affairs to create this compelling product that actually attracts people in diaspora to come back here to either invest or to experience the culture. So there is a lot that we need to do from partnership collaboration. And this platform alone, this Expo, actually gives that platform where we come together here to both share our experiences, but also to co-create ideas that should lead to actions for us to be able to progress forward. I think I was in last year's MKT where I said we should make sure these sessions are not just about saying things that we will do, but also there are some takeaways that we take, and we make sure when we meet here next year, we are showing progress. There are some things that we are learning from each other, and there are some things that we are incorporating and executing. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you're doing a fantastic job, especially the sustainability aspect of the fact that you're supporting the local community and you're also helping the environment, to make sure that you're recycling. So, that's a good job. Keep it up. And I'm very sure you're going to get into more other partnerships. Yeah. So maybe I'd just like at this juncture to look at the issue of how now do we package this heritage. And the Gen Zs are here. And I think Mudamba mentioned that the medium or how we are going to package the tourism or how we are going to communicate about it has to be in a medium that is understood and accessible to the younger generation. So maybe Dr. Kahide, you could just tell us about what you're doing when it comes to the preservation of culture using technology, or whatever medium that is accessible to the people, whether it's the younger generation, whether it's in Kenya or globally, because we are looking at marketing our country not just to our locals, but to the globe. So that means that we need to be in a platform where everybody can reach us.
Hello, yeah. Is it working really? Not really. It's not as loud as Hello? Yeah, okay, sorry. Okay, so I think we can kind of connect that with the issues of partnership that were being discussed earlier. So first and foremost, as Bomas of Kenya, we're a state corporation, which essentially means we are a unit of the national government who's been mandated to preserve culture. But who are we preserving this culture for? We are preserving it for both the nation, meaning for the local community, and then we're also preserving it to package it into products that can be consumed by whether it's international visitors, when you're looking from the perspective of tourism, whether it's educational, in an educational context, when you're looking at school-going children, which are by numbers far the biggest audience we receive, and whether you're looking at the younger Kenyans who are of an urban generation and don't necessarily have access to information about their heritage and about their culture as easily as the earlier generations had. Yeah? So I think it's important, therefore, to partner with all the different elements in the society. So number one, research and community involvement is crucial. Because for you to pick any element of heritage or of culture and place it into a product, and what I mean by product is that you're not just documenting the heritage for the sake of documenting and then putting it somewhere, in whether it's a digital platform or a book or a scientific journal that nobody will read, but you're also putting it out there in a creative manner, in something that a very larger audience can consume. Now that could be a live theater performance, that could be a film, that could be, a music recording, that could be any type of creative product that you can think of. So it's important that the community is involved in that process and that the community feels that their culture has been represented authentically and that they agree with our representation of their culture. So that is one element. Secondly, since we are talking about creative processes, I think it's really important for us to start involving the larger creative sector in this. So working with freelance artists, whether they are filmmakers, whether they are fashion designers, whether they are, actors and storytellers, bringing them into the process and bridging this gap of this is government, this is an institution, and then these are the young people. We live in unprecedented times in Kenya, in which young people, one, they are very vocal, they want to be heard, and two, these are the people who, this is the majority of the population that works in the creative and cultural sector. These are the content creators, these are the young people for whom CCIs is like that is their livelihood. That is where they see themselves, and that is how they feel they can best express themselves. So how do we ensure they're also part of that process of preserving heritage, part of the process of developing different types of products that we can then package and market, whether it's on the tourism sector or whether it's in other spheres and other domains. So I think those partnerships and those connections are what are going to give us now also an added advantage in the element of digital technology. So we connect the partnership with the element of digital technology. We live in a different world now. People don't necessarily have to be physically present in a space to have a certain experience, you know. As Bombers, we've been working on several projects recently in which we are looking at now this traditional music, for example, that we are very famous about. You know, we've been doing this since the 70s, traditional music. How can we package it in a digital technology format that will be more palatable, that will be more interesting to this new generation that is no longer doesn't necessarily want to touch the obok on a lyre, but is interested in that sound, that is considering how can I fuse this authentic Kisi sound maybe into my hip hop beats, you know. So we're also supposed to create that connection between heritage and contemporary creativity. And digital technology is really essential here. So we've run this project called Sample Back Kenya that has taken us across the country. We've recorded and documented sounds of instruments, like I think over 500 instruments from different communities. But the purpose is not just documenting and gathering knowledge. The purpose is putting it out there in an interactive and creative product that the new generation will actually, you know, feel a connection to, and that will inspire them even in their future creativity. That is how we preserve heritage. If we ensure that the new generation actually identifies with it and has a way of integrating it into their contemporary life and saying like, okay, yeah, I'm proud to be Kenyan. I want to know how I can use this, you know, beading technique, for example, in my contemporary fashion design that I'm going to put out there as a creative. So yeah, so those are the different connections.
Thank you very much. So you've brought in something very interesting about the fact that targeting the younger generation will require us to rethink how we package our products and how we present them, because then they have a very different way and outlook, and we can't continue using the traditional methods, you know. And I think also you mentioned something that for the younger generation to be able to appreciate our culture. And I think that is a problem. I think Herusi mentioned it in terms of what is the challenge we have of that we are losing our culture. I feel that it is because we are not making the culture or the preservation of culture, number one, interesting, or number two, that it's benefiting you economically. So maybe why would a younger person maybe learn how to bead? You know, unless that bidding is going to be that they can make something and then they can be able to sell it, whether it's you know, physically or digitally, you know. And so I feel that as Kenyans we need to rethink, you know. And so maybe I just like to bring in Simon and say, how are you now targeting the younger generation in terms of making sure that they are empowered, you know, whether it's somebody who wants to maybe start a business, a young person going to the film industry, they are bidding something and they want to sell it, you know. Basically, it's a startup, you know, whether it's in technology, they are trying to create an app. So how are you empowering the younger generation so that they are able, because they may not have a lot in terms of maybe collateral. They don't have land, they don't have anything that they can give, but they have great ideas and they are making a lot of money actually online. I think even the president has mentioned that many times. So how are you targeting them and how are you assisting them to make sure that they are able to even preserve their culture and benefit from it economically?
Thank you very much. And when you look at this country, we are sitting in a nation where majority of us are below the age of 35. And it becomes very imperative upon us as a nation, as a society, if we want to see success and sustainability in this country, we must focus on how to support our young people, both locally and those in the diaspora. When Hersey was presenting, I looked at many products that we have in this country. We have so much lovely things, we have wildlife, and I was asking myself, for third generation Kenyans in the diaspora, a good example, let me use Sasha Obama. How does Sasha Obama connect to the cultural center in Campus Cultural Center? Does she know that it exists? And how can we play a role as current stakeholders to ensure that they know that we have these things? How do we ensure that these young Kenyans who are out there, they can, because they work in countries which provide them holidays. So how can we enable them when they are thinking of a holiday, they think about Kenya? Okay, that is a big challenge that we have. As a bank, we have tried our best. One, we have strategic roadshows. We have actually purposed roadshows to reach out, engage Kenyans in the diaspora about what is happening here. They ask questions, and I think the biggest challenge that we have, I know we have so much, we want to challenge businesses because, again, you will find most of Kenyans out there have diaspora days. I think Hersey mentioned that in his presentation. 5th of May. Yes, can we make each county probably have a cultural day where we invite our young people in the diaspora to come and learn about our culture? Okay, so those are some of the challenges that we are doing. But again, as KCB, through our foundation, we have just realized the potential that the young people have. And we have started incubation kiosks where people come with ideas. We sit down, look at that idea, we look at a financing model, and see how we can support them. Currently, we are working with a number of institutions where we are training young people to acquire skills. Not every young Kenyan is lucky to go to the university. Most of them fall off because of many reasons. So we are working with a number of institutions, NITA one being a great institution that we have worked with, to ensure that we pick this through the Tujiajiri program and take them to these colleges and train them on skills and ensure that they are able to produce for this economy. Yesterday, we went out with some of my colleagues, and we were in Kiambu County. We met one young investor. His parents left Kenya about 20 years ago. He has gotten a job. He has connections, and I'm happy with what some counties are doing. A number of our counties have set up what we call special economic zones. And these zones are really attracting Kenyans in the diaspora to come and invest. He's actually setting up an office where he's going to employ 30,000 young Kenyans. So we have to rethink about how do we support heritage tourism to ensure that, we are able to use Kenyans who have gone into the diaspora, created wealth, they have skills. How can we attract them to come back home, invest, and create jobs for our young population? Because this is a very key component of the society which we have to take care of. As a bank, we want to assure the young people that we have products. Come with your idea, I was a branch manager Machakos before I came to Nairobi. And a young person came to me with an idea to start a hotel. I don't want to mention the name. Today, as we speak, he doesn't only have one hotel. He didn't have experience in the hotel industry. He just came with an idea to us. We sat down. Today, he has opened another hotel where he has employed more people. And he's continuing to grow. So come to our business. We look at the ideas that you have. A good example, again, of how we have been able to exploit ideas in this nation is apps. From Harris's presentation, we noticed that we have the cost of sending money back here, I think, is one of the challenges from diaspora to Kenya. We have young people that we have worked with who have developed apps, and as a business, we have taken those apps for Kenyans to use to remit money here. So my challenge to the young people: don't sit back, don't complain, come to the table, show up, and let's exploit these opportunities and see what we can do. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think we are really out of time because we started a bit late. So I won't.
Sorry.
I just want to give you like I want to give you like 30 seconds.
All
That's what I wanted to say. 30 seconds for like two to wind up and give us your last word.
All right. If I take 30 seconds, I wanted to just add a bit of my voice on what we are doing from a digital product point of view. And I'll be very quick because of time. Starting with, we're talking of culture, heritage, being big. Hersey pointed, we all know 5th May being an important day. Maybe we should start by making that a public holiday and then having a big cultural heritage extravaganza across the country where we all showcase, the different aspects of our culture, maybe. And, we create an event. That's what many countries do. You create an event and you actually start to bring people from outside Kenya to continent and outside the continent to come in and experience this culture heritage that we're talking about. Also, as Kenya Airways, to reach out to especially the younger demographic who are more digital. We've created a holiday product that is a digital product, KQ Holidays, a one-stop shop. We are partnering with a lot of the hotels, DMCs, and tour operators to bring this to life. It's a new product, but again, it's being where the young people are. And we'll use this to also showcase the cultural aspect, not just selling flights, not just selling hotels, but why should people, let's say, go to Mombasa? What are those unique experiences that you need to showcase? And just in closing, really interesting discussion and conversation we are having. Again, tourism is the cornerstone, I believe, of transforming Africa and especially transforming Kenya, a country where we don't have a lot of minerals and resources, an easy way to really empower our population, but that needs to be driven through, a cohesive strategy where you bring all the stakeholders and partners on the table. And Kenya Airways, we are part of that, making sure that we are allowing connectivity and enabling travel in and out of Kenya and Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kaide?
Thank you. I think to conclude, I'd just like to stress the need for us to do better when it comes to synergies, do better when it comes to partnerships. We have had several challenges, I think, both structural and ideological as a sector. I think we need to create better synergies between the tourism sector and the cultural and creative sector. We need to create better synergies between the national government efforts and the county government efforts. We need to do better collaborating between institutions that are more, structured and more official, let me call it that way, and the ever-growing and so vibrant freelance creative sector, which involves all these young people who are out here crying out for them to be heard. And then also, last but not least, we need to really create better synergies between the public and the private sector. So with this, I want to invite our fellow corporate sector here to really see the transformative power of the cultural and not just empower young people, but really transform the economy of Kenya and the economy of Africa in general. So I think we just need to have more conversations that are not just theoretical, but actually, specific programs, specific deliverables, specific impacts that we are targeting. And a few years from now, we could be having very different panel discussions, looking at what we've achieved, what were the gaps and challenges, and how can we take it to the next level. So,
Thank you. Simon?
Yes, thank you. For me, I believe we have a lot of opportunities in especially heritage tourism, a lot to exploit, and this can be done if we, the solutions are within the box. We just need to look at what we can do as partners, especially through partnership with the various stakeholders in this industry. We look at developing innovative products. Let's be out there, and I just again want to challenge the businesses, local governments. Let's be out there shouting about these products that Hersi was able to present to us. We have so much, but the challenge is that this is not known to our people. When you look at countries like America, they don't have tourists going there, but they have exploited so much of the potential within. Many Americans traveling within just to see what the country has to offer. So if we work together as partners, we can deliver this in a big way for our economy. So KCB is at the table, and we are willing to participate and support. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate. Can we give a round of applause to our wonderful panel? And I think though we have very little time, maybe we'll just give one round of questions. So if anyone has a question to the panel.
Okay, we'll just take those three, please. Kindly hold, because we still have another session that we're going into, and then we'll address all those questions at the end. It's still very exciting as well, presenters who are coming in. So allow me just to take those three, and then the next set of questions we'll take after the other session. So let me take one from here, and one from here. So, okay.
Thank you to the panel and to the keynote speaker. I think he's already left. My name is Elizabeth Dena. I am founder and executive director of Mjeni Dena Limited. One of the things that we do is understand the power of culture and heritage to attract investments. So that's an angle that we use for business. Mine was just a quick opinion on the lady who spoke about, the lady from the DRC. And she said she was wondering why the DRC was not open, people never spoke about it, there was so much going on and all that. I think the key issue for me is again, understanding. Coming also from a space of have lived in that nation, and the greatest fear was, how do I get there? Do they even have houses to live in? Are there roads or anything? The exposure maybe that Kenya Airways and other partners could do, maybe for markets like those, thoughts around how are those places specific targets to us as a nation in terms of our explosion into the continent, into supporting cultural heritage across, because I think this is also more about not just Kenya, but beyond. So I think for the lady in DRC, it's not, we see you, but we fear. I think there's an element of fear that is, and unknownness that is so big, and yet when you get to that country, you realize that, the fear was actually largely unfounded. That's just a quick comment I wanted to make.
Thank you. I'll take one question and question.
Okay, thank you. My name is Sharon, Sustainability and Impact Lead for Nomad Africa. And I have a question for the panel because I've noticed that when you talk about packaging cultural heritage products, you've not talked more about harnessing the power of technology to do this. In as much as you're talking about content creation, and so I would like to ask, what is the place of the emerging technologies like the virtual reality, augmented reality, in opening up cultural and heritage products, and does this pose a threat to authenticity? Thank you.
Thank you. Just one more question.
Good afternoon. My name is Samuel Kesiri, a student from Machakos University. And thank you for the panelists for the discussion and your insights on the topic at hand. And the question is, it has been said that Kenya as a destination, it has diverse cultures that if really tapped into, they will elevate our cultural tourism to another level. Therefore, my question is, we understand that digitization and technology has really occupied this space, not only in tourism industry, but to all industries across the board. Now, what strategies can we put in place so that we remain authentic, our cultures remain authentic as we market them? What strategies can we put in place so that we can be original and market the right thing that we have in our cultures? Thank you.
Thank you. Let's take those three questions.
Okay. Can I respond to the first one, and then the panelist will respond to the others? Yeah, completely agree with the comment that was made about DRC, fear of unknown. But actually, you could broaden that to cover the whole of Africa. If you look overall at the number of visitors who come to Africa, or even intra-Africa travel, it's still limited. So there's an element of unknown and an element of fear. In fact, if I give an example, China is the biggest outbound travel market, tourist travel market. Before COVID, 150 million Chinese traveled worldwide. Less than 1% came to Africa, less than 1%. And yet, from a trade point of view, Africa trades with China is double digit. It's about 10%. So, and if you go in and try to dive deep on why they're not coming to Kenya or to Africa, it's that element of just fear of unknown. So we've talked a lot about, telling our stories, using different platforms, whether that is digital or through partnerships. But we all have a role to start, creating a positive narrative about Kenya, about Africa, and being very intentional and aggressive to open up our country for visitors. So I completely agree with you, but broadening it to even more than just DRC.
Thank you very much. Kaide, I think you can take the two are just one question.
Yeah, I think I can try and link number 2 and 3 pretty much around the same topic. Definitely all across the world and even in Kenya, though we tend to be a bit late on the trends in the market, but even as we are late, we are still seeing several organizations, whether public or NGOs, who are heavily investing into digital technology from the angle of VR and AR and applying it to different domains of the cultural and creative sector. We are seeing VR, for example, now. I wish my colleague from NMK was here to talk about it himself, but we see, for example, NMK developing virtual reality tours of some of the heritage sites, such as Fort Jesus. We are seeing more and more augmented reality. Like recently, we had a project where we exhibited photographs of Kenyan cultural practices, but when you apply your phone and scan it, it becomes real. So it becomes an augmented reality. So I think there are more and more initiatives that are going in that direction. Once again, I think here we need to be more open to partnerships with the private sector. There's a lot of innovative tech companies in Kenya that could have really good solutions, but maybe just don't have necessarily that primary interest in heritage. So how can we who are in the heritage sphere reach out to them? It doesn't necessarily always have to be us waiting for them to pitch a product to us. How can we reach out to them and say like, okay, we are looking at how we can create a platform, an app, you know, a VR experience of this specific heritage element. And, you know, and just putting out an open call and seeing the original creative ideas that are going to come from the tech sector. So that's one thing. And then the last question, which was asked about authenticity. I always tread very carefully with the notion of authenticity, I think, because authenticity is something that is difficult to define and to place in a specific moment in time. Culture is dynamic. Culture changes and grows. Culture is not frozen in time. We cannot say this thing was more authentic in 1735 than it was in 1920, or it was okay up to 1925, but then from 1930 it became, you know. So that idea of adulteration and authenticity, I think, is always a very slippery ground to thread in, especially if you consider culture as something which is community ownership. So as community grows and changes and the needs of the community change, the community also changes its culture. It evolves its own culture because it serves a different purpose now than it did a decade ago, a century ago, or 3 centuries ago. And then I think we should not be afraid of digital technology. Digital technology and emerging technology solutions are just vehicles. They are methods, they are catalysts, but in the end, they are not. They cannot beat human creativity. In the end, you still need that person who thought of the idea of using this kind of technology, or who, you know, tweaked this kind of technological solution for the purpose of developing this creative product or preserving this heritage element. So I think we should be open-minded when it comes to technology. I don't think we should think of it as a threat to authenticity or as a threat to culture. So yeah.
Thank you very much to our panelists. I'd like you to please go ahead here, and you're going to get some gifts.
Let's give them a round of applause, please.
Yeah. Give them a round of applause.
And as we do that, I'd like to invite the Vice Chair, Director Alfina, the Kenya Tourism Board, to come in front and award our distinguished speakers with some tokens of appreciation. Welcome to move. Then I invite all of you to come to the front here. So we just do one more shot. And ladies and gentlemen, let's give them a round of applause.
Ladies and gentlemen, because of time, I wish to call Dr. Amakove Wala up front. She's our next speaker. So she's speaking about our future in the past. Karibu sana Daktari. Then I would prefer, because of time, we kindly, if you have any question after her presentation, kindly take note of the questions until we have the other two presenters present very fast. Then we can have a Q&A session for like 10 minutes. Thank Thank you. Karibu.
Thank you very much. I feel we should stand and stretch. Let's just stand. I'd like you to spell the word karibu using your hands. So we start with K. How is K? I'm holding a mic, so it's very hard. So capital K with your body and your hands. And then small a. So curve a bit. Good. Then an R. And then an I. And then a B. And then a U. Very well. Thank you. And good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Amakove Wala. If I may have my slides up, please. And I'm the founder and chief visionary officer of Wanderlust Diaries, and I'll get a bit into it, what that means. But in terms of the presentation today, I chose the topic, Our Future in the Past, because we've heard about our heritage, we've heard about Africa, what it can offer, and we have this tagline where Wanderlust has partnered with National Museums of Kenya to promote our museums. When was the last time you went or visited a museum, locally or abroad? If it's in the last 6 months, put up your hand. Okay, we have like 10. The last 1 year, the last 3 months, okay? And not because you went with guests, but you took yourself to just visit. And the last 1 month. So we're going to explore the role of museums in shaping the future of travel. Next slide, please. I think during COVID, what happened was quite a number of our sites and heritage were disrupted because of travel, and museums are not part of they were not exempted from it. The role that museums play for us and worldwide is that they are custodians of cultural heritage and history. So the impact of COVID-19, especially here locally, was that most of that, whatever heritage was being held, like staff could not go to work, people could not travel, and as such, our museums were affected too. We've also seen a shift of traveler preferences from passive visits to immersive experiences. I think that was emphasized in the previous discussion with Mohammed Hersi, where someone is saying, I just don't want to go to stay in a particular hotel. I want to experience the environment around it. And so there's a very, very strong power of museums in terms of transforming what tourism and travel is. Next slide. Then we've also seen post-pandemic what museums can do. The cultural experiences are also held not only with our Bomas of Kenya here, we also have very many cultural experiences within the museums. For the Nairobi National Museum, which is located just within the city, we've had art galleries, we've had traditional food experiences. So people really link museums to more of preservation of archaeological findings, or for some of them, they also have animals within it. But people rarely think of museums as places that can also host events and partner with communities around cultural preservations. Many museums have also adopted to new trends in travel. For example, if you go abroad, you'd find, or even in Rwanda, I think I visited the Genocide Museum, there is, when you go in, you're made to feel like you are in that space. So many museums are adapting to virtual reality, they're adapting to visuals, they're adapting to text, things that are tactile, so that people have different experiences as they visit. And very many of them are also going the sustainability way. We are partnering with the national museums in terms of renovating or refurbishing Kariandusi prehistoric site, and I'll get to that shortly. And one of the things they mentioned is even the plans that they're using, that they're drawing, they have incorporated green energy towards the new buildings that are coming up. So museums are not left behind in terms of the sustainability. And of course, I've also mentioned virtual experiences. Next slide. So we are in a space where there are very many different changing preferences. I think I've mentioned the virtual preference, where people want to feel that they've been immersed in that space. This is with regards to artificial intelligence. And there are places where, like museum usually hosts Night of the at the museum, and it's a projection of dinosaurs that are virtual, but you feel like you're in that space with them because you can see the images as they're being projected. Personalized tours. So someone wants to visit a site, they want to feel that you walked with them and you understood the subject matter. So we've seen a shift from very scientific presentation of, let's say, archaeological history to things where you're told, okay, do you remember how you used to skin a rabbit when you were younger? And so they're personalizing some of these experiences such that you're able to understand what museums have. We have interactive exhibits. So there's a department in the museum that does preservation of, let's say, animals that had died and they need to be preserved. So you feel like you're in that space in terms of seeing a live animal, or rather an animal in the real shape, but of course it's been preserved, so it's dead. It becomes much more interactive than if you were to just see a picture. We have a lot of local engagement. So like in the Fort Jesus Museum, which is in the coast, they have infused a lot of Swahili cultural experience. So the Fort Jesus is a Portuguese, built fort, but within that Fort Jesus, they do have events where they collaborations. And I think I've also mentioned how they support ecotourism and sustainability. Next. So if you go to the next slide, just a brief now about Wanderlust Diaries and what we've done. So Wanderlust Diaries next is a travel platform that I started in 2020, born out of my passion for travel. I have been traveling for a while and I write a lot, especially on Facebook. Please go to the next slide, where the documentation of my journey, and I think I had someone saying about Congo. I feel that there's a lot to give travelers respect or believe other travelers when they write about their journeys, rather than if there's a marketing went to DRC and came and shared her pictures and said, this is what I went through, these were the positives, these were the negatives, you're more likely to feel like, okay, I can also do this. And so with that writing, when COVID-19 happened, I got this idea of why not form a group on Facebook where people can reminisce on the travels that they've been having. And that's how Wanderlust Diaries was started in 2020. And then Meta, which is the company that owns Facebook, started reaching out to communities within Facebook that offer social impact. Because that group grew. In 2 weeks, we were over 100,000 members. Right now, we are over 400,000 members. These are travelers. Because what I've experienced is that there are very many organizations that speak for, let's say, tour operators, for hotels, tourism boards, but who speaks for the travelers? So Wanderlust Diaries has sat in that space to bring the voice of the travelers to the tourism industry. So we got a grant with 12 other African communities in the continent to take the group to the next level. And that's how you see some of our products in that's Mount Kenya. Next. And what is our vision? Our vision is to be the go-to platform for all matters travel and tourism for the traveler. So if I want to say what is happening in my you should be able to be directed to the MKTE social media page and share this. But we are looking at a mission where our travelers have information around sustainable travel and tourism. And this is why when over a few months of forming the group and people sharing experiences, I realized there are very few stories from the travelers about museums. It's like after we go to primary school, if you're taken to the museums, we are done with them. So museums are seen more for children rather for the adults. And this is why we born the partnership between Wanderlust Diaries and the National Museums of Kenya to increase more foot traffic within it. Next slide. We have 3 outcomes. The first one is increased knowledge on what travel is. When you're seated here, most of us are maybe experts in the travel and tourism space, but you'll be surprised how little knowledge our local travelers have about tourism. For example, this site here is Uhuru Gardens. It has a museum that is not yet open to the public, but very few people many people drive past this Langata Road and never know what this space is hosting. And that's because maybe the information is not out there or they are not seeking for that information. So the travel platform, Wanderlust Diaries, serves to bridge that gap where you as the expert can come and share the knowledge about any changes, like what the president declared for us recently about the digital things, is not how do you distill that information for the traveler. The second thing is encouraging members to go on a sustainable travel. So many of them would be benchmark, travelers, where they'll commit and say, oh, I wish I could travel, or I wish I had a passport. So we demystified that and said, getting out of your house and just walking to the nearest park is travel by itself. And so with that, we've managed to really demystify and also help a number of people, including increasing the foot traffic to Kariandusi Prehistoric Site 3 times, just because of the amount of information we started sharing. Last but not least is the engagement within the group. Next. So I just want to cover, these are just some of the analytics. I think these slides you can get. I want to go to the next slide, please. These are some of the projects, and I'll focus on only one of them. One is our future in the past, which is what is the topic today. The other one is a photography challenge. So we encourage our members, use your phone, take a photo. You're in MKTE, there's a very nice logo out there. Take a photo and say, I'm in MKTE, because you give information through sharing of that. The Conscious Traveler is about giving information on sustainable travel and tourism, and we use experts for that. We have something called Food for Thought. I think I had the KQ guy saying that we need cultural experiences. Food for Thought is looking at celebrating our traditional culinary experiences, but also giving information. And then we are getting into disability mainstreaming, and last but not least, there's something called Trailblazer. Trailblazer is purely for female travelers. We use female trade partners, so it's the lady who's running it is a woman. If we get a photographer, we look for a woman. If you go to a destination, we look for a female-led management or a female-owned practice. So it's very deliberate in terms of driving the female agenda. So our future in the past, next slide, I have mentioned, is a partnership with Kariandusi Prehistoric Museum. If you look at this, on the very extreme, my extreme left, the signage that's the kind of signage that the museum had. How many know, Kenyans, how many know where Kariandusi Prehistoric Site is? Half the audience that knows. So it is just past, between Kikope and Nakuru. Yeah, there's an area called Elementaita, that's where it is. But because the signage was in very small font, in wooden things, everyone would pass. So what we did through the support of the Meta grant, we put up a very large signage. You can see by comparison the size of a, say, a 5'8" man, that is very large. So it's now very prominent. And just by changing the signage at the main road, the public increased traffic and curiosity. We also got a grant, the same grant, we refurbished the gallery. It was in a very bad state. You'd be very amazed at the state of our national museums. And then the one that is extreme, the construction there, we created a mock excavation site for children, so that the children, when they get to that space, they're able to be immersed into that profession of being an archaeologist or a paleontologist. And it's the first and only one of its kind within the museums. We also got them aprons and other things. Next. So looking at this, the impact of that project, and we are still fundraising for more. In terms of economic impact, of course, by increasing more foot traffic to that, we are social support, because what we're doing is We have also educated the community around the role of that museum, because they used to call it that place of stones. And the stones are Acheulean tools. And people travel far and wide to come and study the Acheulean history. This is what the tools that early man used. But in our communities, what we see are stones, because no one has taken the time to break it down to them, the value of this site. And then foundational, of course, this is science. And we are also looking towards raising funds for virtual reality with that museum. Next. So in short, what I'm trying to just emphasize is that these are just some of the partners we have worked with. Next, is that the role of museums in promoting, the last slide now, which is our contact, the role of museums in promoting our future is based on the fact that they're able to preserve our past. But how can we ensure that that past is preserved in such a way that you and I are able to go to it, we are able to take pictures when you're there, we're able to recommend to other people, but also that past is preserved and studied in such a way that it's able to shape our future. Because like the Acheulean tools are stones that they used to skin animals. And how do we convert that to the modern knife? So these are studies and linkages that we should be able to do to support our museums to be able to preserve our cultural heritage for the future. Thank you very much.
Let's give her a round of applause, please. I know it's a little bit warm, it's a little bit hot. We apologize for that. We're having just a small technical issue with the ACs, but it's been worked on, and it will be on very shortly. So let's give Amakole one more round of applause, please.
So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We have two presentations, one from Beatrice Kinyua, she can come in front, on the influence of market development strategies as on sustainable conservation of heritage sites in Nyeri County. It's part of the conversation we've been having since morning on the value of heritage sites and how they should be managed or packaged for sustainable tourism development, and also lead us to our theme of this Expo, Welcome Home. When we do it well, we will be able to welcome more visitors home. So Beatrice, you are welcome. Carry on.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Beatrice Wairimo Kinyua, and I'll be presenting my paper, and my co-author was Dr. Bitok Kipkosgei. So my research was based on cultural heritage sites. Okay. My research was based on cultural heritage sites in Nyeri County. And the reason as to why I focused on the heritage sites in Nyeri County was because majority of other researchers have focused on the Abadia National Park, whether it's the hotel or the park itself. And I also wanted people to create awareness that there is more than the Abadia National Park. In Nyeri County, we have over 30 heritage sites, but 22 have been documented by the county government of Nyeri. And that shows that there is potential of heritage sites in Nyeri County. Why sustainable conservation? Because it's important to maintain our resources so that we can sustain our economy. Next slide, please. So for the market development strategies, strategy, it is key to understand that it helps to understand the current baseline performance versus where you want to be. Meaning, it helps you to keep track of where you want, of your visions and missions, whether is regarding the cultural heritage sites or of companies. It will help you to keep track. The benefits of the market development strategies: one, it will help you to acquire new users. Two, it will also help you to improve product quality. And three, it will also help you to develop new products and also will result to increase in revenue margins. This strategy also revolves around three components, which is the geographic area, the customer base, and the products. These determine the market, what to look when you want to develop a market development strategy. Next slide. So the terms, the main terms are the cultural heritage, which refers to the resources. As we have been told, the resources can be either tangible or intangible. And also we have the cultural heritage conservation, which refers to the preservation and the maintenance of the resources. We have the heritage sites, the market development strategy. This is the growth strategy that will help you focus on introducing existing products to the new markets. And then we have the sustainable conservation. Next. Yeah, the problem statement. So the problem statement of the study was that the heritage sites have not been adequately marketed. As you could see, even on our screens, they were only showcasing the Abadia National Park. There was no cultural heritage site that was showcased here. That shows that there is an overemphasis on safari and beach tourism. Two, we also have inadequate marketing budgets, especially on the county government, that make it so hard to maintain these heritage sites. Yeah, next. So the objective was to examine the influence of market development strategy on sustainable conservation of heritage tourism sites. Next. So the significance of the study, this study was the beneficiaries would be the both levels of the government, both the national and the county, and also we in general. Next. The conceptual framework. So my conceptual framework, my independent variable was the market development strategy, and my dependent variable were the pillars of sustainability, which is the economic, social, cultural, and environmental. Yeah. Next. On the literature review, majority of the scholars focused on multinational companies, the agricultural sector, and also the small medium enterprises, but we had very minimal studies showcasing market development strategy regarding to the heritage site conservation. So that was the gap that I identified, and it was the summary gap of my literature review. Next. Regarding my research methodology, I used the cross-sectional descriptive survey research design because it both incorporates the qualitative or the mixed method. So it was very appropriate for this research. Next. Based on my findings, the reasons for visiting, majority of the people visit the heritage sites due to the heritage value. The least one was, the second list was entertainment and relaxation, and the least one was for educational purposes. Regarding to the gender, it happens that the females prefer more visiting the heritage sites compared to the male. And the age that majority of the people, the age gap was between 31 to 40 years. They were the most people that visit the heritage sites. And you can see the tourist type, majority who visit the heritage sites in Nyeri County are the domestic, 73%, and 27% is the international one. Next. 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 Yeah, so in my conclusion, the market development strategy has a statistically and a significant influence on sustainable conservation of heritage tourism in Nyeri County. And how can we promote tourism activities using this method of strategy, that is using aggressive marketing techniques, utilize market segmentation to increase customer bases, and also have a management department that orchestrates viable market ideas. I don't think there are many, there is a market department in tourism, especially in the counties. In the national, yes, but in the county, that's where the government needs to focus on. Next, for the recommendation, the study recommends a market development strategy anchored on county economic policies and plans to ensure that the heritage sites are allocated the required funds to develop their marketing goals. Also, we need a structured management team for accountabilities on matters of heritage sites, whether it is on development in terms of ways of preservation, or maybe trying to source funds either nationally, locally, or internationally, that this team will be held accountable, anything regarding the situation of the heritage sites. Lastly, in the conclusion, is also that we should we should actively involve the local communities. That way, they will be responsible for these heritage sites. If we do not actively involve them, they feel left out and they feel no value, because they feel like if there is nothing that I'm receiving, there is no need of me taking care of it. So if we actively involve, and when we mean actively involve, we can also engage them directly or indirectly in a way that they can also earn, whether it is incorporating curio shops near those heritage sites, or maybe involving others to be part of the decision-making team. That way they can be able to influence even the other people within the local areas on the key impact of preservation and the conservation of the heritage sites. Regarding the recommendation for future research, this one can be used by the students. They can look, they can incorporate technology and just like we were told yesterday on the impact of technology on marketing strategies and how it can also help in promoting sustainability within the heritage tourism sites. Another one could be looking at the specific aspects of the unsolved theory, the marketing matrix. You can choose any aspect and also incorporate with specific sustainable conservation proponents. The third one is you can use the pure qualitative approach, that is the cross-sectional descriptive approach, as your research design. Next. Yeah, thank you.
So thank you, Beatrice, for your presentation. You can note down questions that you'd like to ask Beatrice based on her presentation, and as we wait for the next presenter. So the next presenter is Dr. Anthony Pepela from Pwani University, and he will be discussing the topic Social Cultural Inhibitors to Beach Operators' Quality of Life, a case of Kenya's North Coast Tourism Circuit. Welcome, Dr. Pepela.
Okay, fine. Good afternoon. I hope it is coming on the screen, but before it does so, possibly I'll want to say something. This specific research was triggered by an experience that I had at one time. Normally, at the coastal end of the country, we always organize sessions with high school students to come and be told of, career building. So one time I was asking students from schools from the southern part of the coastal region, how many would like to pursue careers in hospitality and tourism? And none of them raised their hands. My concern was why? The key reason they gave me is haina pesa. They've never seen any person in the industry, in their environs, who has been able to do well outside the field. So it triggered this. However, in coming up with this, I'd like to acknowledge my student, that is Kaingu M. Anderson, whom we were able to come up with this paper, but unfortunately, he was not able to make it here. So turn the page. Globally, you will agree with us that tourism sector is the second largest contributor to foreign exchange earnings. The industry directly creates 1 in every 10 job opportunities globally, and you can sum it up that it's around 319 million jobs. And these jobs are not direct, all of them. Others are indirectly formed. It also plays a transformative role in uplifting the quality of life of the host communities at any given destination. And therefore, it plays a big role in ensuring that the local populace benefit in one or another from it. The United Nations Tourism Organization adopted a proper tourism policy, and in it they were able later on to launch a sustainable tourism eliminating poverty strategy, which aimed at 1, being a key driver to poverty reduction, and 2, being a champion to sustainable development among the tourism-dependent communities. Move the slide. When it was doing that, the major intention was that we be able to improve the quality of life of the local populace. In Kenya, tourism, just like the global setup, plays a key role, as it is one of the main key earners of the economy. In the coastal region of Kenya, we have 2 circuits. We have the northern circuit and the southern circuit, and the 2 make a big contribution to the tourism earning in the country, as well as East Africa. The key beneficiaries of this, 1, are the tours, farms, the hotels, and the recreational centers. And indirectly, we may be talking about the suppliers of various wares that are required in the industry, as well as the beach operators. I've highlighted that part of the beach operators because this is a key component in Kenya's tourism industry that is often ignored, but they play a key role. It is argued that they make a contribution of 40%, which we need to find out. All these groups that participate in enhancing our industry, interestingly, aim at supporting the families of the practitioners and hence improve their quality of life. And this is done by 1, forming part of the tourism landscape. you can agree that if you compare ourselves to the rest of the world, most tourists explain that Kenyans are very warm and very welcoming. That in itself is an added advantage that we have. And then two, they offer products and services to visitors which have been spoken about all through from when we started off yesterday. Now, it is important for us to be able to know much more about quality of life. We say that quality of life is the well-being of a population or individual regarding both positive and negative elements within the entirety of their existence at a specific point in time, and this can be measured in various ways. For instance, we can do it by income distribution, employment, life expectancy, education standards, and housing. Despite tourism, as earlier explained, being touted as an effective catalyst for poverty reduction among host communities with unlimited opportunities, this is yet to be realized by beach operators within our circuit, especially to do with the coastal region. Why is it so? One of the reasons is that more than 57% of the coastal residents are classified as very poor. That is, they live at a poverty line of below $1 a day. Two, it has been cited variously that beach operators, on their part, have been severally rated as poor. Now, the concern would be, why is it that the tour operators are regarded as poor, yet relatively compared to the various other job opportunities that are found along the coastal region, they are said to be earning much, much more? This became the genesis of our research. And the key thing here is we were able to develop a hypothesis to be able to find out what were the inhibitors of them enjoying a quality of life. And the hypothesis we drew was that there is no significant relationship between sociocultural factors and the quality of life of the beach operators. And our research was premised on the objective quality of life theory, which was propounded by Van Gogh, Marek, and Anderson in the year 2003. Ideally, quality of life, objective quality of life is perceived by the outside, what the outside world perceives without touching on personal lives of people in regards to the way they live in a given area. And this can be measured externally by observing the way they live, and two, rating that cognitively. Turn the slide, please. Now, in the study, we were able to come up with a design, and that is a cross-sectional research design. And the location, as shown on the map there, was the area stretching from Mombasa and its environs all the way to Malindi. And in this area, we have four main parts where most of the beach operators carry out their businesses. One is around Mombasa, and then we have around the Mombasa Marine Park, and then we have a creek around Kilifi town, and then we have Watamu Marine National Park and Malindi National Park. We talk of Malindi, Watamu, but the two are slightly apart from each other, and the touristic activities that are done by the beach operators are done in two different sites there. The beach operators that we were looking at, or we targeted, were from a list that has been created by TRA, which consists of 851 tour operators. And out of these, using the Taro and Yamane formula, we were able to settle for 272. And the beach Operators that we're looking at include, but are not limited to, curio sellers, water sports operators, glass bottom boat operators, massage parlor operators, glass boat painters, acrobats, and many others. Turn the page, please. In order for us to settle for that population, I mean the respondents of 272, we carried out two forms of sampling. That was stratified random sampling and simple random. And then reliably checked, and we were able to get coefficients of 0.895 of the questionnaire, which was very strong. Kindly jump the page. So in the findings, we were able to find that majority of the respondents were of the age of between 34 to 41, and most of the respondents were male, although we also had women or females who were fairly distributed at around 32%. And then most of the respondents had, at least the majority, had undergone, at the highest level of education of secondary school, while another smaller percentage had stepped school at primary level. And this implies that most of them are knowledgeable, and therefore they're in a position to be able to comprehend and also learn new techniques in ensuring that they do well in the business setup. And then lastly, most of them who are questioned had worked for over 7 years in their workplace. Turn the page, please. So we were able to carry out a descriptive analysis, and the means were calculated. The ones that were closer to 5 were the high responses. Turn the page. And then we were also able to carry out a linear regression analysis. Slide the page. Next. Next. And next. I've skipped those pages because of the technicalities. So kindly allow me to go straight to the conclusion because of time. The returns showed that the returns made by beach operators at personal level are relatively favorable as compared to people working in other fields. However, these returns are not reflective of their objective quality of life. So I'm listing down some of the reasons that were given, and these ones we majorly got them from the descriptives. One, their quality of life is inhibited by their habit of buying clothing for friends and relatives, 1. 2, taking meals and drinks in expensive outlets out of the little that they get, supporting extended families and family members heavily, going for funerals and spending a lot of money there, organizing lavish memorial services for the friends and relatives, and also traveling up country for those who don't come from the coastal region to support the families back there. So we realize that all these are social aspects. In short, we are saying that much of the returns that they make in their businesses is used socio-culturally, and this inhibits them from benefiting from the quality of life expectations that we expect out of them. Good living standards, good environment where they're living. You'll find that most of them still live in dilapidated areas, but they make good money out of it. So we're saying, much as this is a means of enhancing their social capital, their social cultural practices greatly wear them off resources which could have been used to enhance their objective quality of life. Therefore, in recommendation, next slide, we say, both local and national government are custodians of our well-being. They are thus directly responsible for providing a conducive living environment, such as they must develop, prepare, and implement tourism development plans that have a trickle-down effect on the host communities, which apparently is an area that is greatly ignored. 2, set up proper mechanisms to enforce the policies proposed, i.e., offer regular training to all beach operators that address their soft skills, and then 2, encourage impactful social cultural practices, while at the same time encourage shunning retrogressive social practices. If they are able to do this, then it will be very easy for them to be able to improve their quality of life. And we also say that they should be able to provide an enabling environment that allows beach operators to carry out their businesses objectively. One of the issues that we're able to find is that their working conditions, environment, at times is not very, very conducive. Time and again, they are interfered with in their work by other operators, especially the hotels that are found around, who are struggling to make sure that the guests are kept in and not relieved to go and have an experience of the facilities or the activities that are offered by the beach operators. With that, few remarks. Thank you.
So thank you, Dr. Pepela, for that insightful study. You can have a seat at the front. For that insightful study on quality of life. At this juncture, I'd like to invite Dr. Amakove and Beatrice to come to the front. We will take a set of questions which can be handled by Dr. Amakove, Dr. Pepela, and Beatrice. And we note that Dr. Makove talked about the value of social media and how social media can influence the promotion and development of our heritage sites. And it was such an insightful study. We also had the presentation from Beatrice that talked about the market development strategies that are key towards promoting and managing heritage sites in Nyeri County. And we've listened to Dr. Pepela talking about the value of quality of life and how social cultural factors can inhibit the quality of lives of beach operators at the coast. So I welcome a set of 4 questions to these panelists so that we can be able to delve further into this crucial aspect of our social, cultural, and heritage sites. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Mary Orita from KCB Bank Group. My name is Mary Orita from KCB Bank Group. Thank you, Dr. Pepela, for your research, but I would wish to challenge your research a bit. I still feel that our beach boys are poorly paid, and that is why they're leading that deplorable kind of lifestyle. I hope you proposed your findings to the government, and I pray that they're working to do something on it so that our beach boys can lead a better life. I don't believe that the kind of life they're leading is because of the findings you found out. Even us in our daily life, we do support our relatives, we attend funerals, we do all those kind of things you have said, but still we are not leading such kind of lives. So maybe you can go deeper into your research and get more, and maybe you can put the same to the government to see how they can help the beach operators, train them on how they can execute their duties better, maybe get in collab with the hotel so that they can be paid better and lead better lives, just to take them around life. Yeah, thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Aloino. My question was meant for the panel, but I'll still ask it anyways. It is very obvious that one culture has been used to market the tourism in Kenya, Now, I don't want anyone to get me wrong. I don't hate the Maasai. But the best picture a tour firm can use in marketing their product will be the picture of a tour guide wearing a Maasai shuka and showing people around. Most of the times, many of us can barely recognize their cultural attires. Now, my question is one culture being used intentionally because it will bring the market, like it is very marketable? Or is there just an ignorance among the key players in the industry?
Thank you. My name is Walter. My question goes to Dr. Pepela from Mombasa. It concerns about the beach boy. You've discussed about positivity with what happens in the beach in Mombasa, about the beach boys. We also have negativity that it's also supposed to be tackled, because of late you can find that we have local tourists who are visiting Mombasa. People all over Kenya are coming to Mombasa and their first destination is beach. What are the repercussions our kids, our daughters, our brothers and sisters are encountering in the beach? We have beach boys who are there not to work, as to earn revenues. We have beach boys who are there just to exploit our kids. What are the measures that are being taken to solve all that so that we can protect the young generation from unnecessary diseases from the beach? Because you'll find some young people are just there to waste kids, because you find most of the people from upcountry, they don't know how to swim. And these guys are volunteering to help them. And what happened next? It's a mystery. That is my question also. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joanne Wanjiko. Mine is, it's a concern or a question. Now, we are talking about sustainable tourism, and we know culture is a driver of sustainable tourism in Kenya, but I've not had the support we are giving as far as intellectual property is concerned. All of us are of the different cultures we have in Kenya. I think we need to have a mention on what kind of support there is to ensure or to sustain or encourage intellectual property rights. I don't know whether that should be with museums of Kenya or bombers of Kenya, but something in line with that. Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Albert Kariuki, Kenyatta University. 3 questions, just observation. One on Pepela. Is it on? One on Pepela. Total disconnect when it comes to beach boys, that they really don't benefit, but there could be benefits there. One time I worked there, and a parent had that the daughter, the son was going to learn, was it French or Italian, that they can pay for that. And remember, in the coast, they pick that one in the beach. They pick that one in the beach. So in the coastal Lingua Franca, being a beach boy is something. I'm trying to pick out something that can relate to these people who are seated there. Which some of these business jobs that is like a manamba job, isn't it? It's a manamba. So he's wondering, how do I pay for fees for something that you could have gone to the beach and learn for free? I mean, you went to school to learn Italian, you went to school to learn French. There's really a total disconnect on those things. And maybe you should have also better ways of measuring the benefit, because they could be there. And maybe that's just an observation on Beatrice. My real concern would be in Nyeri, when you talk about what are the real issue? Is it marketing, or is it that everybody works alone? Could it be collaboration? Could it be that the counties, the national governments are not working together? And for Dr. Amako, thank you for meeting me. I've met you today. I'm a member of Wanderers. In fact, I've sent something there already. But the biggest challenge, maybe for all these guys seated here, is how many of us go to the museum? Do adults go to museums? Ama tunapelekanga watoto huko na basi ya shule?
Is it possible we could say why none of us went to Nairobi International Fair? Despite of it being named at International Fair, we still know it's our show, isn't it? Is there a way, is there a disconnect of age? I mean, some demographics who reject travel. Is it that people don't travel at a certain age? If we can't go to the museums, if we can't go to the show, who do we intend to go there? Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. My name is Stephen. I'm from North Rift Tourism Association. Mine is both a question and a challenge to KTB and every one of us here. If my brother has said, if you ask anybody about tourism in Kenya, you'd probably see a Maasai. And maybe if you ask somebody from abroad what they would see about Kenya, they will probably mention athletics. They will mention maybe the Masai Mara. They will mention the beaches in Mombasa. Mine is both a question and a challenge. What is being done towards athletics as a cultural heritage? How can it be harnessed so that, for example, they're saying the 5th May for Diaspora engagement, how can it be brought up so that it becomes a viable product as a tourism heritage and be marketed and be used also to enhance tourism in the North Rift region? Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Dennis Munene from Kenyatta University. And I've got 2 questions and 1 observation. The first question is, we all agree that culture is a pillar for our tourism, and that has been observed by many speakers. However, now my question is, what are we doing to project the cultural diversity that we have in Kenya? Because I would understand that Bomas of Kenya is like the only organization that is meant to project our diversity of culture. Yet, most of the tour operators and the people in the industry are not in any way obliged to use or to feature Bomas of Kenya in a way that it assists to project the cultural diversity that we have. Is there any way the government, through the various bodies, can use Bomas of Kenya to project the cultural diversity by maybe onboarding the tour operators and the various players to feature Bomas of Kenya in their itineraries or in their ways of travel? That is one question. And then the other question goes to Dr. Pepela, and that is how did you manage to measure the standard of life of the beach boys or the beach operators so that we rate it as deplorable and not meeting the standard? Because there is a general observation that maybe the life of the coastal region communities is poor, generally compared to other communities. How did you manage to measure the level of the life of standards of the beach operators? Thank you.
Let's take the last question from the lady in yellow, and then we answer that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mine is a comment on Beatrice's paper. All I have to say is that last week I got the opportunity to be invited to celebrate World Tourism Day in Nyeri County government, and we visited various heritage sites. And for sure, for what you have shared is actually what is happening on the ground. We need to do a lot of marketing. We have seen at least some developments in various heritage sites, like where Dedan Kimathi was captured. A lot needs to be done to expose these kind of areas. as well as also partnership with the national government. So I feel like we are having the right discussions on the way to propel and create awareness on the heritage sites in Nyeri County. Thank you.
Okay, let's take those questions. Thank you.
So we can allow the panelists to handle these questions. We will start with Beatrice.
To answer the question regarding collaboration, between the national government and the county government regarding the roles they should play. It is not clear on how the both of them can work together to, both of them can distribute roles in order to promote heritage tourism. I think that's something that they should sit down and discuss so that they can be able to promote the heritage tourism, because majority of the funds goes to the national government. So if they want to maybe construct something, they'll have to approach the county, the national government. For the county, minimal budgets are done regarding to the maybe conservation, preservation, or construction of the heritage sites. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll touch on a few. So in terms of the support, since I entered into this space at a commercial level, let me put it that way, I've seen that, tourism and especially heritage, if you notice how many ministries has heritage been bumped into. So one time it's under gender, another one it's youth, another one it's tourism. That alone tells you the priority that heritage lies within the national government. So the other thing is in terms of budgets, I've been privileged to see some of the budgets of some of the state corporations. They're very, very minimal on that. So what do we do? One is on domestic resource mobilization. I believe in partnerships, like what you've done with Kariandusi Prehistoric Site. There's a time I even had crowdfunding during my birthday month and managed to raise almost 500,000 shillings just from social media towards rehabilitating the museum. So there's possibility of crowdfunding, partnerships through these corporate organizations, and also working closely with the communities and the trade industry. The second question is on the Beach Boys. And the good thing with Wanderlust Diaries is that it's a platform where travelers express themselves. And it became a very big concern when we started seeing stories, and that's why we were very deliberate with a campaign specifically targeting female travelers. They are being sexually assaulted in those waters. And because people are now learning to speak up, then we have also the security intelligence, who are also members of Wanderlust Diaries. Some of them are picking up this. And I think the more we speak out, the more we have organizations like the Coast Tourism Association coming out very strongly against sexual harassment, the more we are able to curb these stories. Overselling the Maasai, I think this has been my story. Every time I enter into a space that I'm sharing with government, I'm like, Kenya is more than the Maasai image. It's more than those beads that we wear. We have West Pokot, we have Turkana, we have Vihiga, where I come from. And I think what Wanderlust Diaries has done is open up this country by just people saying, you know what, in my county, I can see there's a gorge, there's a river. So I think if we wait for government to come up with tourism circuits that open up the country, we'll wait forever. So let's take it upon ourselves as trade partners to actually create packages that are opening this country up. In terms of intellectual property, National Museums of Kenya has a project specifically for this, where they are working with local communities. You identify, and young people are being sent to identify what's culturally unique about them, and they're working with them towards patenting this knowledge. And they've done it with quite a number of communities already. Then why are people not going to the museum? That's why we are here. Let's talk about our museum. It's our culture, it's our heritage. Let's visit the nearest museum that you can. In terms of overhyping the roots, I think it is very important that we showcase when, we are in the digital space. So if you're excursion is not available on the digital space, then you're talking to yourself. If you've had your travelers going somewhere, let them talk about it, let them tag you. The more you do this, the algorithms of the digital space pick up these things. And you find, I remember when I was doing a live video at Mr. Muindi's place in Akamba Cultural Center, he actually got bookings from Sweden and Australia while we were still doing live. That's how powerful the social media is. So let's capitalize on it. Like just after this, say you came to MKTE, tag MKTE, tag NMK, tag the relevant partners, and start talking more about our culture, our heritage. Thank you.
So thank you, Beatrice and Dr. Makove. Now we turn to Dr. Pepela.
I think the lion's share of the questions were targeted to me. And I think I'll start by this. We need to change our perception. We nowadays don't have beach boys on the Kenyan coastline. You call them that way, you are in the wrong footing. All the persons who work along the beach are nowadays called beach operators. To them, the word beach boy is an insult. So let's hope we shall change that narrative. Now, something was mentioned about their behavior. I would like you to note that we have registered beach operators who have specific tasks that they carry out along the Kenyan coastal beach. At the same time, we have persons who are unregistered. They don't have any code of ethics, unlike the registered beach operators. And these are the persons whom your children fall prey to, and they're the ones who mislead and take them through deviant behavior. But when we come to the beach operators, they are registered and they pay levies to the government. In fact, one of the biggest challenges they raise time and again is that they have quite a number of levies. For those of you who were here yesterday, you would have noted when Joy Gona was speaking, she elaborated on that. It is a big challenge, implying that they are subjected to quite a number of levies which do not commensurate with the effort that is done by the government to support their wares. So kindly note and let us advise our children and ourselves that when we go to the beach, it is important that we be able to identify the right people to take us through. All the registered beach operators have badges. So if somebody doesn't have one, it will be difficult for them to give you the best service you are looking for. One of the comments was that the beach operators are poorly paid. Something was mentioned yesterday about opening up opportunities for the beach operators to run some of the key tasks that are required at the beach, which I 100% support. But I wanted to bring this out. They are not paid. These are people who are operating by the beach to attract visitors, just like if any other person had an SME or if any other person had a small business, so that you partake of their wares. I have carried out quite a number of researches with the beach operators, and in one of the researches, we were able to identify, or rather note, that they make quite a good amount of money on a daily basis when things are good. That is when we are having the high season. One can even go with even 20,000 or more per day. But the biggest challenge is they are used to getting money on a day and spending it. They don't have the culture of saving. And that is where the problem is. When they get money, instead of going to the local pubs or the local eateries, they choose to go to the high-end 5 stars, 4-star, 3-star hotels, name it, where everything is expensive. Possibly we may look at it from another point of view and say that while they are going there, they are also targeting, in quotes. Targeting meaning that they are looking for better partners in the name of the tourists who can give them an opportunity to get out of the country, which is one of the key things they do. And others may be looking for opportunities to get sponsorship of their children to be taken out of the country, ingawa hawajasoma sana. So those are the big challenges that we have. In this particular research of ours, we were concentrating on social cultural inhibitors. You'll find that most of them make quite a good amount of money, but there is nothing to reflect back at home. One of the questions was, what are these parameters we were using to measure their quality of life? In a previous research we carried out, we were able to pinpoint most of them relating to housing. We are talking of good houses, where good houses means good roofing material, walls, and the floor. We are talking about plumbing systems, fresh running water, plumbing system. We are also talking about the environment in which they live in. We are also talking about having electricity. Live in deplorable environments. Now, the theory that we are using here is objective quality of life. Objective quality of life implies we observe relative to the expected, and then we rate them accordingly in relation to where they live. And that is where the argument all started from. I hope I've answered all the questions.
So we'd like to thank the panelists. I think they've made an attempt to answer all the issues that have been raised. And these discussions we will carry on with the discussions during the break that we are about to have, and also in the afternoon when we will be looking at issues of inclusivity, issues of diversity within the tourism sector. So when we look at all these aspects, they are all related to aspects of developing our tourism industry in a sustainable manner. So we will carry on with these conversations through the afternoon, and hopefully by the end of these 4 seminars, we will have gained something about how we can develop our industry in a more sustainable manner that incorporates all stakeholders within the industry in order to ensure that we not only say welcome home, but we welcome home our visitors in a manner that will be of benefit to all stakeholders in our community here in Kenya. So thank you very much. We can give a round of applause for our 3 panelists. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'd like to invite them to come in front. And I'd like to invite one of our directors, Director Victor Shitaka of the Kenya Tourism Board, to come and present them with a reward of recognition for insightful tourism trends and opportunities and areas of how we can improve our tourism. So ladies and gentlemen, let's give them a round of applause as we give them the recognition.